Hey, what's good, everybody? It's me, your hero, Benjamin Banks, and you're watching a brand new episode of Leveling Up with Benjamin Banks. And guys, I'm doing this one solo. You know, D, he is in the multiverse trying to do his thing, and then Trav, he's in outer space. Usually D's in outer space, but Trav is in outer space this time. And they left me to run the ship or the train, like D likes to say sometimes, or the ship. I don't know. They say so many things, but your hero, Benjamin Banks, he's going to be able to take care of the job today. And right now, we have an incredible guest. This is somebody that I grew up listening to. You guys grew up listening to. You've heard him on Xmen, the animated series as Morph. You heard him on Sailor Moon as Artemis. And you guys know that I love Sailor Moon. And that is professional voice actor Ron Rubin, or as I like to say, Mr. Rubin. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much. It's nice to be here, Benjamin. I'm sorry your co-hosts are in outer space. I hope they're having a good time up there. I'm doing well. Thank you so much. And thank you for the respect of Mr. Rubin, but please call me Ron. Okay.
All right. You're welcome. And then I'll call you Ron. But, you know, it's really awesome having you up here with us. And well, not us, but it's so weird.
You got to go singular now.
Yeah, I know. I got to go singular now. But, you know, it's just really awesome that you're joining me up here on this episode. And I'm really excited. Like I said, I love Sailor Moon when I was a kid. I love Xmen, the animated series. And then you were also on Avengers, United They Stand. And, you know, I'm ready to get into this interview. So before we get into today's interview, everybody that's watching, make sure that you like this video, you subscribe to the channel, and you hit that bell button so that way you're always notified when we have new content here on Leveling Up with Benjamin Banks. And as D always says, podcast link down below in the description. Like, follow, subscribe. And if Trav was here, Trav, he usually has the tip of the day. So this time I'll get the tip of the day. And my tip is whenever you are feeling down on yourself, keep believing in yourself, because the only way up is to keep on leveling up. Hey, I like that.
I like that too. You know what?
Yeah.
And that's very relevant to the to what I do in the entertainment world, because if it's all based on, you know, rejection and acceptance and going for a part, and if you don't get every part, just don't give up on it and keep at it and keep trying. You know.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you with that, Ron. And you know, as somebody that's a professional wrestler, you know, sometimes you're not always gonna get booked at a certain show or whatnot, and if you don't get booked, you can't give up on, you know, chasing your goals, because it's like once you give up, then it's just like, what's the point? You know, you only live once, and you need to take every opportunity that you have in life to keep on leveling up and going after what you want to do.
I couldn't agree more. Look at the MLB batting title. They're hitting around 300. That means they strike out 7 out of 10 times and they still get the title.
That's right. That's right. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into the interview. So the first question that I ask each and every guest up here on Leveling Up with Benjamin Banks is, what is your origin story? Every hero or villain has one. So tell everybody who you are, Ron.
So the origin story of Ron Rubin?
Yes, the origin story. Yeah, the origin story of Ron Rubin when you came crashing here on Earth from Mars, and then it's just like start from there and then lead us into how you got into voice acting.
Okay, cool. I grew up in Winnipeg, which is like the center of Canada, just above Minnesota there for the American audience. And you know, I always had this this inkling to want to do voices and sound effects, and it just fascinated me. I was really young and I was watching the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. I remember as a little kid, and Mel Blanc was on, you know, and he was did Bugs Bunny and all the Looney Tunes stuff, and I watched this normal looking man, and all these voices were just emanating out of his mouth, and I was fascinated by it. You know, and he'd be sitting there just doing his bugs and I know I should have turned left in Albuquerque or whatever, and all these crazy voices were kind of coming out of him, and it's like, oh man. So I didn't know what it was, but I always knew I had this interest in that. I went to university working towards a degree, and I ended up having my own radio show, and I did all the voices and sound effects. It was a comedy show, and back then there wasn't all the sound effect library, so we had to do you know, if the car was starting, you know, or champagne was opening, and I just loved the genre of voice and doing different characters and everything like that. I'll cut to a few years later, after I finished my degree. I wanted to be an actor. My father, the doctor, had no idea. We had no family connections or anything. So I moved to Toronto, and I got into Second City, and I started doing improv, and started doing stand-up, and used a lot of my voices and sound effects in stand-up. And I toured, North America doing that, and studied acting in New York. And I was just trying to pursue everything. And I was doing some film and some TV and commercials. And then I got hired to do an animation gig, and one of my first ones was a thing called COP Cops, which not the show where they arrest people, but the Central Organization of Police Specialists. And I played the evil Dr. Bad Vibes. I'm the evil Dr. Bad Vibe. And I was just doing all these wacky voices and getting paid for it. And I just fell in love with the genre, of animation and voice work, and had the opportunity to work with some very, very special people, along the way. One of my first gigs was doing the cartoon Beetlejuice. I had about a half a dozen parts in that, with Tim Burton at the helm. And, I would just show up in the studio. I was used to kind of doing on camera where you had to hit your mark and remember your lines and I don't know, but there's something magical about being behind the microphone and just being able to create voices. And I was just in the studio in a baseball cap and my jeans and doing this character and that character and the other character, and I slowly got out of on camera and theater and things like that, and just kind of started dedicating my career to voiceovers. I could talk for hours about what got me there, but that's the very short story. Starting off in radio, then going to Second City and doing improv, and then stand up, and then just honing my craft with all of those, working on my voices, and finally cracking in, getting my first cartoon. And one thing led to another, and I've been very blessed and privileged, and so that's a little bit of my origin story.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of a couple of things that you said, I just think that for anybody that wants to get into voice acting or just anything in the entertainment business in general, I love that it's like you got your start in radio, and then it opened up more doors for you. Because just recently I was interviewed on a radio show, and after the interview, one of the hosts had asked me, he was like, "Hey, have you ever thought about doing radio? You have a voice for radio." And I had told him, I was just like, honestly, people have told me that all my life. And that's the reason why I started the Leveling Up with Benjamin Banks podcast. And he had told me, he was just like, "Well, we have internships here at the radio station. So if you would like to, join, take the internship, then I think that you should do it." And I just think that when you have opportunities like that come your way in your life, especially if it's something that you've always wanted to do, that's like you need to take those opportunities, because you never know where it's going to lead for you to go to. Same thing with voice acting. Because of the podcast, one of the things I always wanted to do was get into voice acting, and I took some voice acting classes with one of our former guests, Mr. Matthew David Rudd. And you can check out his interview, or you can listen to the podcast or watch the video on YouTube. It's available everywhere to all of our listeners and viewers that are watching this. And I just think that it's so cool, because it's like you teach voice acting classes as well.
Absolutely.
And I just want to know, the years of experience that you have from, working on camera and then working behind the microphone, how is it, being a teacher, and especially too now with the ease of access that comes with getting into voice acting now? Because I just feel like when I was younger, it's like you had to be in the know in a way. It's like you had to.
It's a whole different. Sorry, Benjamin. It's a whole different world now. When I started out, there was no voice acting classes, or I teach commercial reads and animation and gaming and all that kind of stuff. When I was going to acting school, they never taught any of that kind of stuff. I learned the old-fashioned way, by my boot pants, and I kind of I initiated, the radio show, and I initiated kind of getting up on stage and trying different voices and everything like that. Right now, as you mentioned, the access of, of Zoom and all the video platforms, I teach students from around the world, and I think people are realizing, wow, I can kind of be in my in my home studio, and just kind of be doing that. Now, a lot of people, let me clarify. I mean, the good news is there's tons of production happening these days, both union and non-union. But the not so good news is there's a ton of competition as well, because everybody seems to want to, break into it. And it's the best way in the world to to make a living. I just love it. But when I'm working with someone, it's not just a matter of putting on like a kooky voice. You have to actually become the character. So that's the kind of the differential there. I consider straight reads, commercials, narration, audiobooks, voiceovers. When it comes to animation, I consider that voice acting. And it's one thing to do the voice, but you have to create a three-dimensional character, know how the character laughs and chuckles and exerts and sighs and everything. So part of the equation is capturing the voice. The bigger part is acting. The bringing the words off the script and acting the part. But yeah, no, it's fabulous. I'm working with so many people from all over the place, and it's really exciting. And also, back in the old days, you had to show up in studio and be there in person. Now, a lot of things, because of streaming and Source Connect and everything else, you can kind of, I can do cartoons from Toronto, LA productions, New York productions, whatever. So you don't have to actually do the traveling anymore.
Yeah.
But there were certainly no voice classes when I started back in the 80s. But like I said, I learned the old-fashioned way, just by doing it.
And to piggyback off of that, because we had interviewed Kyle Hebert, who he does a lot of work in the Dragon Ball series and My Hero Academia, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and he got his start in radio as well. And also, everybody that's watching and listening, you can listen to his episode too, or watch the videos on YouTube. But I remember what he was telling us when he went in for an audition for Dragon Ball Z. He just walked in, he was wearing like a Hawaiian t-shirt and some shorts, and he didn't think he was going to get the job, and he got the job. So it's like, we hear all of these stories of, how these voice actors, got these jobs with these iconic characters. Because another one is Linda Young, who's interviewed that y'all can listen to or watch. And she had told us when she got into Dragon Ball Z, she saw an ad in the newspaper. So I want to ask you, like, Sailor Moon, it's one of the most popular animes in the world, and you voiced Artemis up there. Like, how was that audition for you? Did you go in there and you had on a sweater and some shorts? It was just
we're going back 30-something years. I don't know what I was wearing, Benjamin. But Sailor Moon is really something, because that was the first major crossover anime that came to North America. And back then, I was I was doing Care Bears and Police Academy and typical North American kind of cartoons. And then this Japanese anime came over, and nobody really knew what it was. And for those in your listening audience who don't know the difference between ADR and animation, the majority of animation that you see on Disney or Pixar or Simpsons, Family Guy, Primetime, whatever, you lay down the voice track first, and then they draw to that. Okay, and so you really perfect the voice, and then they animate to your voice. With anime, it's already been voiced in whatever language it is. Anime would be Japanese, and when it came here, we had to put our own voices into it and Americanize it. So basically, you're reading lines as they're going across the screen, and you're trying to lip sync it to that. Now, Sailor Moon was a hugely empowering female, series, and there's only two male leads, Tuxedo Mask and Artemis. There's a few other male parts in it. So during my audition, it was funny because back then, first of all, we used to record these episodes like at midnight in this studio, and we had no idea, what it was going to be or how it was going to take off or anything like that. But the part of Artemis kind of, do you remember the TV show back in the 80s called Moonlighting? It was with Bruce Willis and Sybil Shepherd.
It sounds familiar.
Okay.
I'm about to look it up. That sounds familiar.
They played kind of Private Eyes, and Bruce. So they originally told me to model Artemis after Bruce Willis in Moonlighting. And so they wanted him kind of cool. Like there was so much craziness with all the Sailor Mars and Jupiter and Neptune and Sailor Moon and everyone. The girls were kind of going crazy and very high energy. And so Artemis, they wanted to kind of, hey, dude, chill out. They just kind of wanted him cool. And over time, I gave him a little more energy like that. But oh, come on, Luna, get off my back. And it was awesome. And it wasn't a huge audition process. I just remember kind of reading for it and kind of getting it. And at that point, nobody knew who the main characters were or anything like that. And we recorded them and kind of haphazardly because we had no idea what we were doing. And we're just reading, words going across the screen. And then kind of it went dormant for a while, and not until I think was it the 10th or the 20th anniversary of Sailor Moon, we got invited to do a Comic-Con in Vancouver and then in LA, and the crowds, the fans were insane. I mean, it was just fabulous. They were just I've done a lot of Comic-Cons for all the different shows I do, but the anime Sailor Moon fans are just unbelievable. And they just, the cosplay, and they're just dressed in all the costumes, and there were just lineups, around the block. And it was then, all those years later, that it hit us that, wow, we kind of did something. Because when you record a cartoon, same with shooting a film, but when you record a cartoon, you don't know which one is going to take off. You don't know which one is going to be hot. You don't know which one is going to be, the next big thing. And, I've done dozens, hundreds of different characters in different cartoons, and some have taken off, sky high, and others, did well, but didn't get that same kind of reaction from the fans. But Sailor Moon was one of those that really took off, and I'm really proud to be a part of it.
Yeah, and that's awesome. I mean, because like I said, it's one of the most popular animes of all time, especially here in the United States and in Canada, because when it came out, I remember it used to only come on like really early in the morning. And unless you if you woke up that early, you didn't get a chance to watch it. But thanks to Toonami, Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball Z, they became like these worldwide phenomenons. And I just think it's awesome that you were a part of such a historic show. And
well, it was cool because I was, part of the original cast. As you probably know, they've done a redub of it, and it's got a different feel to it. And God bless all of them. But there's something to be said about being the original. It's like being the original Star Trek or something. Yeah. But there's something to be said about the original cast. And when I meet fans at Comic-Cons or elsewhere, they said, you're my childhood, and it helped me get through this or that or whatever. But it really had an impact on people, and it was really a special time. And you, as I said, you don't realize the impact it has until you meet the fans again, and then it really hits home just how much it meant to them. So I've been very lucky to have a few cartoons that have impacted the folks that way.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because that was going to be one of my next questions that I asked you. Like, how did it feel when you were a part of the original cast, and then you hear that it's being rebooted, and then like, did they reach out? Did they reach out to you guys to see if y'all wanted to come back and be on Sailor Moon Crystal, or did you just find out through social media that it's just like they're rebooting it and they're getting a new cast?
No, we were at LA Anime, and it was this huge con at the Los Angeles at the Staples Center, and we were like the featured Sailor Moon cast, and we were having a great weekend. And then, unbeknownst to us, on the last day they had us on stage and they introduced the new cast, and we had no idea, because we had heard they're doing a reboot, and we were all, of course, hoping that we would be the voice of. We didn't, no one had been contacted, and so we kind of found out right on the spot, and it was a very bizarre kind of. So we met the new cast, and it was kind of a bizarre experience. So no, there was no talk of using the original cast. I did the original Xmen, and I'm part of the new Xmen '97, where they used some of the original voices. But back to Sailor Moon, we just kind of found out on stage, and we were like a little taken back. Now, we couldn't have done it anyway because they went non-union and they used different anyway, without getting into too much detail, no, we weren't contacted to do that. It would have been great, but you know what? We were all very happy just kind of being the originals. Although that said, the guy who took over Artemis was Johnny Young Bosch, who you probably know from anime. He's awesome. So I've done a few panels with the dueling Artemises with me and Johnny up on stage, which is kind of fun. But yeah, it's, you know, it would have been nice if they kept the original cast. That would have been awesome. But you know, sometimes reboots, you're lucky enough to continue on, and other times it doesn't go your way. I just got to be happy for what I had.
Exactly. And you know, because it's one thing that I know that some fans, they feel a certain type of way about, because like take Dragon Ball Z for example, another iconic series, and then they announced Dragon Ball Z Kai, and they had changed, like they brought back the original cast, but then they had also changed some of the voice actors that
it
were,
happens.
you know, and you know, of course, like the fans are just like, well, dang, like I was hoping that this person would come back.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's a part of my childhood, just like, you know, you were told when you were at the cons. And you know, it does suck, but it's like, you know, sometimes it's just
well,
like
you realize it's out of your control. Like
exactly, you can't control that. Yeah,
the higher ups. Yeah. So, but anyway, it was a great experience, and I'm still, you know, living through it with fans. You know, and I probably will till the day I die, because
nice.
You know, it was just awesome being that involved in that. Yeah.
So one more final question for Sailor Moon, then we can move on to the next topic. You said that you've gone to the cons and whatnot. Like, what have been some of your favorite experiences from going to cons and meeting Sailor Moon fans?
Oh, it's, you know, whether it's Sailor Moon fans or fans of other shows, it's just, you know, you think it would be this ego expanding, gratifying kind of time, but it's actually really humbling, because a lot of these fans, you know, grew up on your stuff and on your voices, and to them to meet the person behind the voice of, you know, it'd be like when I was a kid and meeting the voice of, you know, Fred Flintstone or Popeye or something like that. I'm aging myself, but but you know, I mean, guys would come up there with Artemis tattoos, and women, you know, it would be dressing up, you know, as my character, and you know, I always do them. I usually do them with Luna, and so the two of us have a ball together, and it's just, you know, being able to get out and give them a hug, and when you're allowed to hug fans, and just meet them in person, and hear their stories, and wipe their tears, and just kind of, you know, support them, and just have them support you, and so many different experiences, but just it's just amazing. And as I said, you do something and you don't know for years, you know, later what the impact is going to be. So when it actually happens, it's a very bizarre kind of parallel universe almost, because you do something and 20 years later you're reliving it, you know. And it's just I've got nothing but great things to say about it, the experience.
Yeah, man. And I think that it's always awesome when you have like that next generation of fans that can appreciate your work. Because
that's so cool, because sorry to interrupt, but
that's cool.
You know, I've had like grandmothers whose mothers are into it, and mothers who brought their daughters who are into it, and daughters who brought their grandkids who are into it. So you got a whole multi-level of people who watched it at different times in their lives and had, you know, different or similar effects on them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you know, all I was going to say was that because me and Trav, we had did the Dragon Ball Super movie premiere at Cinema Cafe. And, you know, of course, it's like we're older. We watched Dragon Ball Z when we were kids and whatnot. So it's like we have, you know, a different feeling about it. It's like we still love it, but it's just like we're not as overly excited as a kid would be. And like there were these kids that were at the theater, and, you know, I was doing Q&As with, you know, people that were coming in the theater to see the movie and people who were coming out. And like these kids, it's just like their eyes were lit up. And I was just like, man, like I remember when I was a kid and I used to look at Dragon Ball Z like that. So it's just so awesome that you have these anime and cartoons that are out there where it's like these younger generations of fans see this stuff, and it's just like they still have that same feeling that you once had when you were a kid. And I just think that's awesome. And now, you know, you were more for an Xmen animated series, and it was put on Disney Plus. So it's like, you know, people that's in my age group, we were able to enjoy the series again. And then you have these new generation of fans that can watch the series and they can enjoy it as well. And now you have Xmen 97, which is coming back. And I just think it's awesome that because of the power of social media and, Disney having Disney Plus and all of these people watching it, it revived the series. And of course, you have tons of other shows coming back too, like Batman, the animated series is coming back. And I heard rumors that oh, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. You always live through it through the, through the fans' eyes. So
Yeah.
whether they saw it, 30 years ago or yesterday, you're always kind of, reliving that. But X-Men was one of another. That was another show that really hit it big. Absolutely. And Morph was interesting because he. Auditioning for the different parts in there, and I did do a lot of different voices and everything, and they kind of wanted to add a bit of a not a comedic foil, but a little lightness to it. It was based originally on the Changeling from the comic book, so Morph, his mutant powers allowed him to metamorphosize himself into other people. So I got to play. When I was in the studio, I never knew whether I was imitating Gambit, mon cher, or somebody else. I was up for it, but then I think the first or second or third episode, I'm reading the script, and Morph is left for dead, and this is the actor's nightmare, is to read a script and have your character killed off, and basically, Dr. Sinister. I talked to the the showrunner and the writers and the producers, and they said you really screwed us up because you had such fan loyalty. What happened was they wanted Morph to really befriend Wolverine and create a really solid bond there, and then they had planned to kill Morph off, which was never done in cartoons. You don't kill off a character of a cartoon, but they did it because they wanted to show the audience that this series is going to be a little different from the other animated series that you've seen. But they did a lot of focus groups and everything, and there was a huge outcry from what I understand from fans of Morph. Like, how could you kill off Morph? We want him back. So they brought back Morph as the evil Morph. Dr. Sinister put an evil brain into his head, and so I got to come back, sparingly over the 5 seasons. And Morph, who used to laugh, he was kind of happy-go-lucky. He turned into this kind of this evil character, Morph. But that was just an awesome part to play, and once again, a lot of fans kind of dug Morph, which was really cool.
And I think that's awesome. And I want to piggyback off of what you said about fans mailing in that, hey, we love Morph, because the same thing happened on Mighty Morphin Power Rangers when Tommy Oliver was up there, and they took his character off of the show. And then so many kids were upset because it's like they love Tommy. So, as a kid, when I saw Morph, I just thought that it was messed up. Like, I of course, I didn't know who to write to back then, but
right.
I thought it was messed up that it's just like, wow, like they killed this guy off like right at the start of the series. But then when Morph comes back and like now he's evil, I was shocked because it's just like, you don't really see, especially back then, you didn't see characters that were good guys and then now they're bad guys.
They wanted to turn the tables and show that, this show meant business. And, talking with Eric, talking with the writers and the showrunners, they said they had planned a 5-year story arc for all the characters, and I was not to be included. They used me as a sacrificial lamb. And then there's an outcry from all the all the fans to bring Morph back. So he said, you kind of screwed us up because we have to bring you back, and we're trying to figure out as the evil Morph. And but my character kind of got high ratings with the fans, so they brought me back. So that was really nice, but it was a little confusing for the fans. But I mean, that was just something that X-Men, the series did that was a little different, and that's what made it pretty special. Also it was a very dramatic, up until then I was doing a bunch of cartoons that were a lot of very cartoony, goofy kind of roles. And this one, rehearsals for this were like a theater rehearsal. You really had to get into your part, and there was a lot of internalization and acting, and it was a very different cartoon, and you knew that from the start, with this one. And so it was a different sort of cartoon, and then that led into Avengers, where I voiced Vision. I gave Vision the first voice. He kind of came through in the movies. And yeah, you mentioned X-Men 97, which they're rebooting and using some of the original voices. So I'm pleased to say I'm part of that in a recurring role, but I may not be Morph. There's been some changes, so I know I can't. I've signed too many NDAs to talk about it right now. But they've made some changes. So some of the main voices are coming back, but they're good enough to include some of us in the series, but not everybody is playing their original part. I'll just say that. But yeah, I'll leave it at that right now.
Okay. I mean, yeah, and look, I know that everybody that's watching or listening to this episode, it's like they want as much information that they can get about X-Men 97, but you guys have to wait. It's like we can't get Ron in trouble. He signed the NDAs, and if you don't know what an NDA is, Google it because it's like
non-disclosure.
It's like I'm one of those people where it's just like when voice actors get replaced when they're at these iconic characters for so long, I'm just like, man, something had to happen if they were replaced. So it's just like, please, like, stop going online, because this is something that a lot of voice actors say on Twitter all the time. It's just like, if you hear somebody voicing something, please don't blow up their Twitter asking like, hey, is this you? Because you can get that person in trouble, and then they can lose out on a role that they've been voicing.
It's all good, man. It's just, some shows go in different directions. Cal is still playing Wolverine, and Lenore is still playing Rogue, and George is playing Beast, and 3 or 4 or 5 of the main characters are intact, but some of the other ones, the voice actors are in the show in different capacities, and some of the characters have gone in a different direction. But I'm still very pleased to be involved in the show, and it should be a great series.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see it. And to piggyback off of what you were saying about Voice and Vision on Avengers, like I remember when that show came out and being a fan of that show, and it sucked that it only had 1 season. But being a kid, you heard the voices on Avengers, and I was just like, hey, some of those voices sound familiar. Like, and Spider-Man the animated series, Avengers, X-Men animated series, I feel like a lot of the voice casts, they shifted between different characters on those cartoons. And I just want to know, like, what was the experience like being on an Avengers cartoon? Because I believe at the time, or in general, like that was the first Avengers cartoon to ever come out. Like before that, you had just Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, no, I was just going to say, like, you had Avengers appearing on other cartoons, and, even in the 70s and 80s, you had them on shows, but you never had an actual Avengers cartoon.
Yeah, I don't know what happened with that series. As you said, we only did 1 season, and it's, like I said, I'm the voice actor, I'm the talent. I go in and I do the best job I can. But when it comes to the logistics of series getting picked up or moving in different directions, you have no control over that. I wish it would have continued, but it didn't. But it was, it was interesting for me because, as I said, I was playing all these other characters, and then Morph was a really interesting part for me to play. And then the Vision, I really, I'm sorry, that does not compute. I had to very, vocalize him as, kind of a android robotic, character. So it was a great acting experience, and I loved doing that. But that didn't get the traction that X-Men did, at all.
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, and the same thing can be said about Silver Surfer as well. I don't know. I just feel like, because of the late 90s, unfortunately, anime was starting to become a lot more popular because of Toonami. And I feel like a lot of, kids that grew up watching X-Men animated series and Batman and all that stuff, they kind of started leaning more toward anime, if that makes any sense. And it's good that you were on Sailor Moon, because it's kind of like you had the best of both worlds. It's like you did cartoons, and then now you were a part of a anime series. So I guess you can count that as a win, right?
Oh yeah, no, I've been very blessed. I mean, depending, it's a different mindset. It's a different audience. Like the anime fans are pretty hardcore, anime, and then X-Men fans are kind of the fans of X-Men are their own kind of breed, and then fans for Beetlejuice or Care Bears or Police Academy or Cops or some of the other cartoons I've done. it's similar, but it's different. But the anime fans are very steadfast in their love of of that styling. But yeah, no, I got very blessed because I've done anime and I've done animation movies in prime time and Saturday morning cartoons in preschool and the whole gamut of animation, and I love it all. Like it's the best gig.
Okay, so I want you to plug your school real quick. And like this is a question that Dee usually always asks all of our voice acting guests that come up here. To anybody that would love to get into voice acting, what is some advice that you would give to them, and why should they come to your school and take your classes?
First of all, you can track me down at ronrubinvoice.com. And because of the pandemic and everything, I'm doing private one-on-one Zoom classes with students. And like I said, I teach, commercials or animation or gaming, narration, e-learning, the whole business. Why should they come? I also do in-person, workshops for animation as well. You know what? I've been around for about 40 years and I've seen all the changes in the business. For example, if we're talking about commercial reads, a while back they wanted big, forceful, over the top, kind of voices. And now they're looking for a much more natural, conversational type of read. And so what used to be, come to McDonald's for 99 cents, you can get a Big Mac this Sunday only. What used to be in your face has completely shifted. And that same read today is, right now, McDonald's, you can get a Big Mac for 99 cents. Sale in Sunday. Because they don't want it to seem that an actor is reading the lines and selling your product. They want, your average Joe and Jane to be reading this. So the reads have changed a lot commercially, and also with animation. When I first started, a lot of the cartoons were very big and over the top and goofy and kooky voices, and then they kind of went very dramatic with, as you said, the Dark Knight and Xmen and Avengers and those kind of reads. And these days they're doing a lot of, when I work with a student, first of all, I'll say I'm very supportive and encouraging, but I don't bullshit. I kind of, if somebody, and I don't want to waste your time and money on a teacher that'll just say, oh, that's great, you're fabulous. Let's work on what you have. And some people have an innate ability to do characters, and having an acting background, Benjamin, is very important. If you're doing improv or stand-up or singing or something, so get familiar with your voice. It's not just a matter of, as I said, putting on a silly voice and reading words. You actually have to become the character. So I work with people on their strengths and not their weaknesses. And some people, there's a few different types of voice actors, and one type is the actor that has the big booming voice, that's kind of a signature voice that you're always going to recognize that voice. And other actors, like myself, do 100 different characters, and women who have a very specific voice or a distinct kind of voice can do very well with that, or they're great at doing different characters. I just try to bring out the best in students, and as I say, I don't beat around the bush. I kind of work with them and find where their strengths are, and I'm very encouraging, and I'm very realistic. A lot of people come into this saying, hey, I can just work out of home and make 50 grand a year, 100 grand a year out of my basement, and it's not that easy. Some people can do that, absolutely, but there's a lot of competition. But I think I've been sorry, I'm backtracking a little bit. These days, I was talking about the cartoony voices and then the kind of the dramatic voices. And these days, I like to work with a student taking their natural voice and going different places with it, because that's what's happening. Just the same way as commercials are getting more conversational and natural. Animation, take whatever you watch, Rick and Morty or BoJack Horseman or Family Guy or Simpsons or whatever. There's going to be the odd kooky wacky voice, but a lot of them are going to be the quirky neighbor or the bratty brother or the cool sister or the the kooky uncle or whatever. So let's take your natural voice and go places with it. pretend you have a cold to kind of be a little nerdy or geeky or something like that. Add a little rasp and see where that takes you. Put a little crackle in your voice and see what happens with that, and just go different places with your natural voice. So I try to work with a person's natural voice, and as well as get into cartoony voices and accents and like that. It's limitless. The beauty of this career choice is the only limitation is your imagination, like quite literally. When I was doing on camera and stage and film and TV, you get to hide behind, or at least you get to use hair and makeup and set design and wardrobe and stage and all that kind of stuff as adjuncts to your character, and it's very helpful. But also it's something with voice work, it's all your voice. Like, you have to convey your character 1,000% with your voice. You can't hide behind wigs and costumes and set design. And so they have to understand that it all has to be conveyed, that way. And to commit to character, that's probably the most important word when it comes to animation, is commitment to the character, 1,000%. And I don't know, there's a lot of good teachers out there, but if you want to check out my website at ronrubinvoice.com, you can see what the students are saying, and you can get a little taste of what I've done and what I do. But as I said, I have 40 plus years of experience in the business, and I love working with people, and people like working with me.
Hey,
anyway, so whatever. Who knows? Anyway,
man, I'm weak that you said that, because it's like I always say, people love me and I love people. It's just funny that you said that, man. And I mean, I just think that it's awesome because, like you said, you have 40 years of experience. So it's just like you have so much knowledge that you can teach and give to anybody that's trying to get into this field. And, earlier, like you said, like, there's so much competition because literally anybody can get into voice acting now. Anybody can put a reel up on social media, but it's actually like learning and working on your craft. And I love that you said that, you try to find somebody's strengths that they have, so that way that it can help them get to the next level and, hopefully voice an iconic character in an anime or a cartoon. Again, like you said, you just never know what's going to happen. You never know what's going to stick. And that's the one thing that... Oh, go ahead.
And also, sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Go ahead.
But when I was starting out, you didn't, you needed an agent and representation, and you needed to show up in the studio. These days, because of social media and all the different outlets to audition online, and you don't necessarily need all those things. You kind of you need a half decent demo. I mean, that's really important to get, your calling card as a voice actor is your demo. It doesn't matter how old you are, what you look like, what your nationality or preference or religion or none of that matters. It's just your voice. So get, work with a professional teacher, and whether your strength is in straight reads and commercials or animation or gaming, and get together, a demo and do it right. First impressions really count, and put yourself out there. And, these days you can create a website out of nowhere, with YouTube and all the social media that's out there. You can really kind of promote yourself. And there's a lot of websites out there that some are pay to play that you have to sign up for, others are free, but just get behind the mic and get as much experience as you can, and just start recording things and listening to your voice. And you can get a home studio set up for a fairly reasonable price these days. You don't have to spend thousands of dollars. You can spend a couple $100s and get a decent mic and headphones, and download an editing program. There's some free ones that are good out there, and just start playing with your voice and auditioning here and there. And of course, it helps to work with a professional, coach to guide you. But you don't have to. I don't know. It's much more accessible these days, I guess I'm trying to say. And you can really kind of promote yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. So now I want to ask you, like, has there ever been a time in your career where it's like you went into the studio for an audition and you thought that you knocked it out of the park, and they were just like, oh, we're fine, we're just going to go with somebody else? And if that has happened to you, like, what did you do to bounce back from that?
Oh, sure. That's a great question. Very early in my career, I took everything personal, right? If I didn't get a gig, like something was wrong with me, what did I do bad? Maybe I don't, deserve to be in this business or whatever the case. It's, as I said earlier, it's all about, being able to handle, rejection. And it took me a lot of years to realize it's not me they don't want. It's they're looking in a different direction for what, when I was doing on camera, maybe they had a different physical person in mind, or when you audition for animation or anything really in the business, it usually comes down to two things. One is the director, the producer, has something very specific in mind, and he won't stop until he or she finds it. And the opposite end of the spectrum is they don't know what they want, and you have to go in there and show them that this is you're the best for the part. But either way, you can't really take it. To answer your question, of course, I've auditioned for tons of stuff that I just thought I hit it out of the park. I nailed this one, and then I never heard back, And alternately, I've had some kind of half-ass auditions that I actually landed where, wow, I didn't expect to get that one. But dealing with the rejection and bouncing back is really important in this business. As I said, when I started out, I used to kind of take it personally, and geez, why didn't I get that? And kind of get, a little pissed off and think, I wasn't good enough. And now it's kind of the opposite. I go in, I do the best job I can, and if I land the gig, great. If I don't, then hopefully I've made a good enough impression that they'll remember me for next time. Basically, you just have to learn to put your best foot forward, do the absolute, preparation is key in auditioning. Know the script, know how to mark a script, know what to emphasize, know how to adapt to the character, give them what they want, maybe give them something outside of the box, but basically do your best. And now when I do an audition, I just let it go. I walk out of the room and I just let it go. And, if I'm talking to a friend and I'll say, yeah, I had, 2 auditions today, he'll say, what did you audition for? I half the time won't even remember, because I literally do the best I can and then let it go. And when I teach my students, when I do audition prep with students, I get them to the place that I think they're at the very best, at the peak of their ability. And I say, if you don't, if you get the part, fabulous. If you don't get the part, what you want to do is just impress the casting agent enough to say, you know what, you're not right for this part, but we'll keep you in mind down the road for other things. You just want to make a good impression. But it took me a while not to take it personally, but maybe I've become jaded and complacent in my old age, but I just do the best I can, man. But there are certain parts that you really, really want that you're kind of upset if you don't get, but you know what? It's all part of the business.
I 100% agree with you. I mean, it's just like I was saying earlier, when it comes to wrestling, it's just like sometimes you're not always going to get booked at a certain company. And it's just like, you can't take that personally, because I know so many people, like I'm celebrating 10 years right now being in the professional wrestling business. And thank you very much. I appreciate that. But it's just like, there's so many guys that I've seen come and go, and it's just like they take stuff personally, and it's just like, you can't take stuff personally, because at the end of the day, it's a business, and you always just have to just keep on looking for more work, because it's just like, just because this one place doesn't want to use you, you can go to another place and then they'll use you, and you never know where your career might go because that one place didn't want to use you. So that's why I always say, it's just like, it's best to just stay positive and just keep on moving forward. Like, anything.
Oh, you gotta. I mean, what other choice do you have, man? And you know what? You meet the same people going up as you do going down. So like, always, just make a good impression and be very respectful of your craft and the people that you're working with. And longevity. And also, when you do book a gig, it opens doors to other gigs. And which is really nice. But I've been very blessed. Since the early '80s. I think if you look at my IMDb, there hasn't been a year that I haven't, done an animation cartoon, I don't think, in all those years. Some years I do more than others, but I mean, it's, as I say, I'm very blessed that I've been able to, to work at that level, for this time. But it's a precarious business, and it's just keep doing the best you can and try not to get discouraged or disappointed, because of course, you're not gonna get every part. My God, nobody, Robert De Niro doesn't get everything he auditions for, so, it's all a matter of just doing your best and handling your expectation, and sometimes it takes a couple of years to get that first job, but when you get it, and it's cliche, but don't give up your day job until you're kind of, some people are like give up everything to make a career in this business, and that's great once you start making a career in this business. But you gotta pay the rent as well. So get as much professional coaching as you can, be as active as you can, get as much experience behind the microphone, and just be prepared. They say luck is the opportunity and preparation, right? So you wait for the right opportunity and just be prepared for that moment. But take the classes, do some acting classes, some voice classes, some singing, some improv. Just it's all about your voice, so protect it and use it for good and not evil.
Okay, I like that. So now I want to bring up something, because this is kind of a touchy subject right now, but
what's that?
And if you don't want to answer this question, that's completely fine. But a lot of voice actors have recently been chiming in over this article that just came out, where it's just like it was something with the pay. There was this big movie called Jujutsu Kaisen that had came out, and they were saying that the voice actors in the movie, they were either paid $300 or under $300, but the movie, it grossed over, I want to say 30 million. It could be more. It could be more, but like a lot of voice actors, some that have been doing it for a while, and a couple of the new ones have been, talking about like their displeasure with the pay when it comes to doing voice acting. And then again, I know John DiMaggio, he recently had the thing with Futurama.
I remember that. Yeah, he held out and he got his
he was just like, hey, I deserve to be paid this amount. It's like people, they watch Futurama not just for me, but it's just like I'm one of the main characters up there.
No, absolutely. I mean, from day one, there's been controversy around that, because the companies are, making all the profits, and the voice actors are, getting, what their session was, and residuals work differently with different unions and things like that. But I mean, it's once again, how do I broach this best? Well, you never know where voice actors, as a rule, don't get part of the like the producers own the project, and so they're gonna get a lot of the profits. And also, there's a whole, not that I want to get into a whole discussion about union and non-union. If you're SAG or ACTRA in Canada, or SAG in the States, there's union rates and there's residual rates, and when you get a part, you get that rate. The show you're talking about, I don't know if it was union or non-union, but sometimes non-union actors won't be compensated as much, and sometimes it's there's not as much protection in that. But that said, I mean, I'm not getting pieces of royalty from from Xmen or Sailor Moon or anything like that. Like I'll make whatever I do on reruns or residuals, but I don't get a piece of the huge profit margin. But I know it's it's a bit of a touchy subject, but that's between the actor, their agent, and what they negotiate for. But sometimes you're a little hamstrung, because what do you do? I've often worked for less to get a good part because the exposure is good, right? But so that's up to the actor themselves. But no, it is kind of it's a little fishy when something makes $30 million and you get paid 300. I agree with that, man. But I don't know that situation, so I can't really comment on that. But
no, and it does suck. I mean, speaking what you had just said about taking low pay and getting exposure, like that's something that we say in wrestling. It's just like you're either going somewhere for the exposure, the experience, or the payday. Like those are the three things, because it's just like, sometimes you can get really good experience and travel far away, and the payday, it might not be the best, but the exposure and experience was a good thing. And
especially if you're starting out, especially if you're starting out, I encourage voice actors to take gigs for no pay or very little pay, just to get some experience in the work and to get some exposure, and maybe someone will hear you, or you can put it on your demo or whatever the case. If you've been doing it for many years or decades, and you've reached a certain level, then possibly you can negotiate something a little higher. But if you're just starting out, just work as much as you can, basically. It'll pay off in the end. It's not always fair. It's not always fair.
Nah, yeah, I 100% agree with you on that. And one last thing I just wanted to bring up, because one of the voice actors, Kyle McCarley, he voices Mob on one of the popular animes, Mob Psycho, and season 3 is about to be coming out soon. And unfortunately, he's not going to be a part of the season because he went and demanding more pay and trying to get a union contract, and unfortunately, like, they let him go. And like, there's been an outpour of support from other voice actors and fans, because it's just like, at the end of the day, you just want everybody to be taken care of. You want everybody to win in the long run. And it just sucks that you have these situations where it's just like somebody has been doing something for so long, and it's just like in the snap of a finger, it just got taken away.
Well, like we talked about earlier, some of this business is out of your control. I mean, I just optioned a cartoon series that I created, and in that capacity, I can control, certain things that I can't control just as the voice actor, as the talent. So, that's the other option. And these days, with all the social media and YouTube, you can create your own projects and voice your own projects and put yourself out there, and be in control. But other times, you're basically at the hands of the person who hires you. But yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we're getting close to the end of the interview, and usually what we like to do up here, D, he has his, famous questions that he loves to ask. And, because we are in the spooky season now, I got to ask, what do you like to do to celebrate the spooky season?
You know what? I like dressing up 364 days a year. Halloween, I don't like to be told to dress up, so it's funny. I'll dress up every other day. No, you're talking about Halloween. I'll be at home giving out candy and kind of hanging around with the neighbors in the neighborhood and stuff like that. But I don't know. I used to always, when I was a kid, I was dressed up and went out and got my candy. But I'll probably be doing a spooky thing with my gal and handing out candy, or maybe going out with my neighbors and checking out the neighborhood and all the costumes and everything like that. I live in a complex, and some years we go all out and we put the webs up and we show scary movies on a screen in the back. And
that's awesome. That's always awesome. And
having the pumpkins and do all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So this year we might do that. We'll see.
Okay. All right, cool. Like that sounds amazing. I mean, it's just like, I just love the spooky season because there's just always so much to do. I mean, you have all of the horror movies that come on.
Oh, yeah.
You have like the events, like going to haunted houses or haunted hay rides. And like the whole month of October is just always a cool month to celebrate. So this leads into one of Dee's questions.
What's that?
And first off, before I ask Dee's question, even though Dee isn't here, he wanted to know if you could say the line that Morph says when he gets left behind. Dee, this is for you.
Well, what's the line?
What is the line? He said, it's like, you left me. Yeah.
You know what? I don't have the exact line in front of me. You're putting me on the spot here. Don't leave me behind, Wolverine! Help! Save me! I'm not sure what the exact line is, Benjamin.
And you ad-libbed it. It worked.
Okay.
Hey, look, as long as D heard that, he'll be happy. D, that one was for you. And I'm sorry that you couldn't be here, but I know you're in the multiverse right now trying to save everybody.
I wish you were here, D. And yeah. But, getting back to Halloween, I love watching the old movies and Beetlejuice, I usually watch. That's a great old 80s movie.
Yes.
That I watch a lot. And I love the whole season. Absolutely. Sorry, D, if I didn't do that justice. I don't know the exact line you want from me, but I'll get it to you if you want.
I'm sure he'll be sipping on his ginger beer and say that was good enough for me.
Okay.
But the question that he usually asks is, is there a favorite horror movie that you like, or is there something that spooked you as a kid and has stayed with you, into your adult life, or is it something that spooked you recently and he's just like, man, like I can't watch this, or I can't go to this haunted place or ghost or whatnot? Do you have any stories?
I don't know if I do have any spooky stories. You know what? I had a friend. my old girlfriend loved horror films and just loved them, and we used to watch them every night. And I have a very active imagination, so I basically have a lot of nocturnal journeys. I have crazy dreams. So if I watch too many things, I kind of might go crazy. You know, when I was in film school and or when I was young, I was watching a lot of Alfred Hitchcock and you know, Psycho. Oh my God, that stuck with me forever. And The Birds and things like that. You know, there's a few different types of horror films. You know, there's the slasher ones that don't really scare me. It's the psychological ones. You know, the whole Freddy Krueger stuff, that was pretty wild. I mean, that really got me because I'm such an avid dreamer.
Yes.
Like the whole concept of he enters in your dreams and you can't get out and it's real. That really kind of got me. And so, yeah, you know what? As much as I like to be scared sometimes, I remember watching certain movies and kind of not feeling all that comfortable going to bed. So yeah, the Nightmare on Elm Street series kind of really hit home with me, and some of the original, you know, Hitchcockian kind of ones really got to me. I really like psychological horrors too, you know, and Get Out was great, and but yeah, I don't know if I have. I got some scary experiences in my life that still haunt me to this day, but they're not exactly the answer to your question.
No, I totally understand that. I just want to piggyback because when I was a kid, Nightmare on Elm Street, and Child's Play were like the two scariest things, because I'm just like, you know, Michael Myers and Jason, like that's just movie stuff. But Freddy Krueger, he can get me in my dreams. And then if you grew up with toys and you watch Child's Play and you see Chucky, it's like, you know, all it took was somebody to tell you like, that dog or that toy comes to life at night.
To life. Chucky, no, I hear you. Chucky didn't do. Nightmare on Elm Street really did for me. You know, Pinhead from Hellraiser. That another classic. That was kind of creepy too. I don't know if you saw Marathon Man. It wasn't a horror film, but there was a scene in there with a dentist drilling. Anyway, there's some really spooky ones. But yeah, I'm with you. The entering the dreams at night that you have no control get me a lot more than the out in the open slasher movies. Absolutely.
Yes, sir. So now the follow-up question that D always asks is, what is one of your favorite 80s or 90s movies? And if you want, it could be 70s as well.
Okay, the 80s. Oh man, you know, the 80s were amazing for some futuristic sci-fi. Like think about it. The 80s, you had E.T., you had Aliens, you had Raiders of the Lost Ark, you had The Empire Strikes Back, you had Blade Runner. Like you just had a lot of futuristic sci-fi kind of things. But I mean, as far as lighter stuff in the 80s, Princess Bride came out, and Beetlejuice was great. Scarface, loved that. Field of Dreams, 80s. That's one of my favorite sports movies ever. What else was in the 80s? Raging Bull, Blue Velvet. There's so many good movies from the 80s. I mean, God, I was born in the 80s, so I was like 20 in the 80s. So yeah, like I said, you know, the first Raiders of the Lost Ark and Aliens and the Empire Strikes Back and
classic,
and Blade Runner. And watching E.T. for the first time. Jesus. Talking about another scary movie that came out in the 80s, The Shining with Jack Nicholson. That was kind of cool.
Ooh. Okay, so Ron, I'm sorry to cut you off right here, but because you had The Shining, you had the original movie, then you had the TV movie that came out. Like, what did you watch the TV movie that came out?
Who was in the TV movie? I just watched it. I'm just talking about the original one.
Okay, so just the original. Yeah, see, I haven't watched the TV movie, but
no, I haven't seen the TV one.
I know that you have, like, you know, some fans, they weren't really fans of the 80s one, but they were more a fan of the TV, because the TV movie was more of an adaptation of the book, where they had made changes in the original movie.
I don't think I've seen the TV, but I mean, you know, Stephen King is unbelievable. Like, there's so much. Oh, Carrie. That was something. Like when Carrie came, just didn't expect that. I mean, Carrie was very cool. There's so many, you know, Stephen King, you know, Pet Sematary, Carrie.
Pet Sematary.
I could name so many of them, but yeah, Stephen King was pretty huge when I was growing up reading that. But yeah, there's just so many of them.
Yeah, and I love that you named, like, all of these horror movies, because like I said, we're in the spooky season, and like all of those are classics, like The Shining, and what was the sequel that had came out? Dr. Sleep, which was really good.
Yeah, Dr. Sleep was pretty cool. Yeah,
man. And like, it's like you said, Stephen King, so many stories. I mean, like Pet Sematary, that was another one that gave me nightmares. Pet Sematary 2 gave me nightmares. I saw that when I was in the 3rd grade, and it gave me nightmares all the way until I was in middle school. Like, that's just crazy, like how horror movies can do that to you. So
I know.
I appreciate you saying like all of that for the 80s. And I mean, you gave a list of movies, but I mean, if there were any in the 90s that you wanted to name as well.
I don't know what's coming out of me 80s versus 90s or whatever the case, but talking about horror films, then there's like, I mentioned Aliens. So that's a whole different genre. That's like futuristic sci-fi, coming out, and, Aliens and Predator and like all those things. There's there's quite a few back in the 80s. Like I said, I'm not sure exact dates of any of those, but they're back in the 80s, early 90s for sure.
All right, cool. Well, Ron, we're here at the end of the interview. It's been a fun ride.
It's been awesome.
I enjoyed myself, and honestly, like, I'm really proud of myself, because it's like, I usually don't do this, but I mean, I do interviews by myself because I interview cosplayers. For Who's That Cosplayer, you guys can check out those interviews on YouTube. But it's just like, this is the first time where it's just like, I've been down 2 guys, and it's just like, wow, I had to do this by myself. So
you did a great job, Benjamin.
Thank you.
Great job. I'm sorry I didn't have the pleasure of meeting your co-hosts. Maybe another time, but
definitely.
Too bad I missed out on that. But you did great, and it was my absolute pleasure. And I hope I gave you an entertaining worth of your time.
You did. I had a fun time, and I appreciate your kind words. So before I let you go, let everybody in social media land know where they can find you at.
Ron Rubin, RUBIN, voice, ronrubinvoice.com. And you can look me up there, find out a little bit about me. And if you're interested in doing some voice classes, you can do that. I'm pretty busy these days doing a lot of stuff, but I'll try my best to make time to accommodate who's ever interested. But that's where you can find me. Also, you can hear me on a few shows and a bunch of commercial campaigns, and see me at Comic-Cons in your area. And and I just want to thank the listening audience for putting up with us for the last hour. It's been wonderful walking down memory lane a little bit with you, Benjamin. So thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome. And hey, y'all know where y'all can find me, your hero Benjamin Banks at KingBenji_Banks on Twitter and Instagram. You can find me on Facebook at Benjamin Banks. I should be the first person to pop up. If not, then I need to contact Mr. Zuckerberg. If y'all are interested in taking some voice acting classes, hit Ron up. I was about to say Mr. Rubin, but he told me to call him Ron, so hit Ron up. And I mean, again, so much experience. He'll help you level up, like the podcast is called, and get to where you want to go in your field when it comes to voice acting and whatnot. So make sure you check out some more interviews that we have here on the channel. Check out the podcast. The link is down below. But we have new episodes every Tuesday, and then the video of that episode is up here on YouTube on Friday. We have reviews, reaction videos, all of that good stuff. And like I always say, keep that pinky up, stay positive, stay safe during the spooky season, and we'll see you next time on Leveling Up with Benjamin Banks. Peace.
Thanks again, everybody, for watching another episode of Leveling Up with Benjamin Banks. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe to the channel. Podcast, we got that too. Make sure you give us a thumbs up and hit that bell for further episodes and notifications. Thanks a lot to our patrons. And if you don't mind, join the Patreon. We'll be having new specials coming up soon.